I said, I'm really sorry. I had to go see a cardiologist today because the stress has just been too much, But 2 months before that, so in June, there's a foreshadowing to this. We're in Disney and the kids are 5, almost 5 and 1 at the time. And there's a picture that I took and it was of two computer screens. It's on a Monday. And I was running a Monday team meeting from Disney. If that's not enough, the caption says better never stops, even on vacation. 2 months later, I'm seeing a cardiologist. Something's got to change.
The Business Owner's Journey. I'm Nick Berry, and I've got real business owners telling their real stories, sharing their real lessons and strategies, so you don't have to figure it all out on your own. Bradley Hamner is the founder and CEO of BlueprintOS, and he hosts the Above the Business podcast. Bradley works with small business owners who are doing between $300,000 and $3 million in revenue and helping them move from what he calls the Rainmaker, where everything depends on them, to becoming the architect of their scalable and self-sustaining business. We talked about how him burning out at 34 led him to build his business operating system that he wished that he'd had. Why knowing what stage your business in is what's going to change everything for owners, how EOS misses the mark for early stage businesses, why designing your business beats defaulting your way through it, and what should be systems driven versus people driven. Bradley's a sharp thinker and a straight shooter. I love the architect, the systems thinking, the Playbook organization. He's got something special going with BlueprintOS and his Above the Business podcast. Enjoy the episode.
Everybody we work with is doing, at least 300,000 in annual revenue up to 3 million. They're really good entrepreneurs. They work hard. They're going to be successful,
They're serious about it. It's not a hobby.
No, it's definitely not a hobby. I mean, this is what they do. I mean, they may have, they willingly chose to go be a business owner and an entrepreneur. And so that's an important distinction, and they've gotten a little bit of lift in the business. And so the reason I specifically call that out, because a lot of the stuff that we talk about, I mean, maybe some of it, sure, a lot of stuff we talk about just won't work whenever you're trying to go from 0 to 300,000, so that's why there's a whole different conversation that can be had about what is somebody's in a full start, they're just getting started, getting off the ground. How do you test ideas? How do you begin to get your first paying client? I've started a lot of companies, and in fact, majority of the company, and pretty much all of them have been where I've started them from scratch. But that's a whole nother conversation to have, and tools and mindset and skills that you need and thought process that you need than when somebody's trying to go from 300,000 to 1 million. And then that conversation changes from when you're at 1 million, what do you need to do from 1 million to 3? Some really fundamental business principles that once you kind of understand them, it's like, oh, well, that does make sense why there's things begin to change whenever you approach 1 million, and then you start dealing with all of these other opportunities and challenges. I mean, some of them are challenges, but also there's some opportunities to do. And so that's why, listening to somebody that's got $100 million portfolio, fantastic. I'm at 300,000. Okay. And so how does that help me go from 300 to 1 million? Somehow. Totally different. It's just totally different.
Let's talk about that. What is it about the game that changes at that, whatever that 300, that threshold that you're talking about, where, okay, what got you here is not the thing that's going to get us there.
Okay. So first of all, at 300,000, you're averaging 25,000 a month. The reason that's important is because depending on where you came from, you at least now are paying yourself a salary of, maybe $50, $60, $75,000. All right. Let's just say 5,000 a month. Okay. So you're paying yourself a salary, and you also have a team. So you have a team. So you've got, whether it's a handful of contractors, et cetera. So you're starting to learn how to build a team. And so now you're having to go through, well, how do all of the learning pains of how do I recruit? How do I post a job? how do I put somebody on payroll? What does payroll look like? And so, do I use ADP? Do I use Sure? Do I use Gusto to run my payroll? How do I pay if I've got an international contractor? How do I pay an international contract? I mean, all these little things. But more importantly, now you gotta train people. You gotta train people. You gotta actually take it out of your head and say, well, this is what I'm really good at. How do I then teach other people how to do it? And so that is a tremendous skill to learn if you really want to continue to grow and get to $1 million, because you can't do it off your back. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, at the end of the day, in my own story, I had been in business for 5 years, and in 2015, I mean, we were doing 500,000, 600,000, and I found that period between 500,000, maybe 750,000, where a business can really just be ran off the founder. Okay. It's just a founder led business. The founder is driving the majority of the sales. They're doing all the things. But at some point in that 500,000 to maybe million, depending on the business, you're going to run out of time. You're going to run out
Mm-hmm.
of time. You're going to get exhausted, and the business feels much more like a hand crank. And so the thing that you have to be able to learn is unpack your head of, what do I actually do? How do I take and break this down into skills that I can actually teach and train, and then coach and hold you accountable to the things I want you to be able to do? Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you start out, you're the producer, right? Because you have to eat, so you have to go kill to eat, and then
100%.
you go have to evolve into getting results through other people.
Yep.
And so you figured out like here are the things that need to be done, and how do I get those accomplished through other people? Like the production gets passed down, then it's probably going to evolve into how do I do those things well,
Yeah.
right? There's a method behind
Yeah.
doing these things. It's not just checking a box. You're listing off how do I run payroll or how do I do this and how to do that. And that's the like that's the what we've got to do. But then there's also, well, how do I start doing those things well? How do I do all of these things well together
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah.
coherent?
Yeah. In fact, and I'll say this just because it's relevant, because yesterday in our community, we were going over what we call the Attract A Players Playbook. Okay. And so that's one of the handful of playbooks that we give as a template, but we also coach. How do you build an Attract A Players Playbook? And so an Attract A Players Playbook has 3 elements. And I'm just using this as an example since we happen to be talking about this one. It starts off with, well, what does an A player even look like? So we call that an A player profile. So what's an A player look like? Just give me, in fact, this would be interesting. For a salesperson, if you work for a small business and I go hire a salesperson, what are one or two of the characteristics that you would say are qualities of an A player salesperson? What do you think is one or two of them?
Self-starter, personable,
Yep.
goal-oriented,
Yep.
like solutions driven.
Yeah, that makes sense. They're that's all correct. They're a hunter, right? I mean, they got high energy. They're a go getter. Would you say that a player salesperson is detail oriented? Probably not.
Generally not.
Probably not. Okay, now let's go the other side. You're hiring a client success person. You're hiring somebody on your customer service, customer care side, whatever you want to call it, account manager side. Would you want that person to be detail oriented and organized? Are those two of the things that you would say?
Mhm. Yep.
Absolutely. Okay. So just that in and of itself is like, we're on the same page. All we say is like, hey, let's just detail that. Let's just lay that down on an asset and say, this is what an A player looks like in a sales role. This is what an A player looks like in a customer care role. Okay. So that's one. Number two is, you got to create a job description. You got to have a job description that you post. And I don't know about you, but if you look at some of these job descriptions people put out, it's full of a bunch of words that mean nothing. And
I mean,
people are
they're as
like, oh
bad
my
as
gosh, it's a
resumes
bunch
that
of
are out there.
fluff. I'm not even going to riff off that. It's like, be honest about what it is you actually are looking for somebody to do. You can have so much cut through if you don't use words that people don't understand what that means. You clearly use ChatGPT to put together that job description thing, which listen, I'm good with using AI to have some inspiration to help organize some things, but like it's obvious ChatGPT just wrote that and it's full of a bunch of crap. Nobody's going to nobody's going to read that, pay attention to it. We actually teach have a job description that literally becomes something that you can even hold them accountable to. Not just a one time in recruiting, but it's actually something that we pull up and we make sure like, hey, this is still your role. So those are two things. I'll go into the Attractive Players Playbook also includes a recruiting system. It also includes team member onboarding. What's that first 90 days look like? Okay. So here's the deal. Depending on where somebody is listening to this podcast, that may in and of itself just overwhelm them over the last 5 minutes of like, oh my God, there is a lot of stuff. Yes. Welcome to small business. Welcome to small business. Welcome to entrepreneurship. It's why it's the ultimate self-development course there is because it's the combination of so many different skills that you have and learnings and mindset and tools and all these different things. But here's the good news. I think business can be a lot more like Legos than puzzle. Because right now, when I just mentioned, I took one playbook, one of the handful of playbooks that combine to really run the business on an operating system. And I started to break that into pieces. And that can be like a little overwhelming. Like, wow, there really is a lot to learn to run this business. Yes, there is. But you can find it to be much more like a puzzle, like a Lego than puzzles. In puzzles, you just dump all the pieces out on the table, don't you? You know, you have a weekend at the lake, you dump all the pieces out there, and everybody's kind of like, wow, where's this piece? Where does it go? I'm not really sure. Oh, it doesn't fit there, it doesn't fit there. But what are Legos? Legos are you pull it out, you dump the pieces out, and even sometimes in Legos, it comes in the little bags, doesn't it? It's like these go together, and then these go together, and then these go together. And you pull out the instruction manual, and it has the instructions, and it says, step number 1, do this, put these two together. Step number 3, put these together. I think business leaves clues, success leaves clues in business, and business can be a lot more like Legos if you can get yourself access to the right people, get yourself around the right community, get access to the right tools, and then also make sure you're getting the information relevant for where you are in the journey. And we talked about this before we hit record, but what somebody is doing at $3 million is not the thing you should be doing at 300,000. I mean, it's good to have the inspiration for that. And like, oh man, that's inspiring. That shows me what is actually possible for my business. But what do I need to do to go from 300,000 to 500 and then 500 to a million and actually start to see it more as a roadmap that I'm going to follow than it is about like, I'm just going to go emulate somebody at $3 million. And I've got so many stories around people that have tried to do that, have gone into debt, like a lot of debt, trying to do something that's out of order. And that's why I like the Lego analogy and metaphor, I guess, to be able to help somebody to understand where they are and where they want to go.
Yeah. Well, that resonates with me too. Like the Legos, it's modular. So there might be 1,000 Legos there, but there are only like, X number of unique pieces. Let's say you need to know, I need one of these little 2x2s, or I need a 2x6. I need a tall one or a thin one, but with a puzzle piece, they're all unique.
Yep.
And the thing is, you mentioned like, well, that seems like a lot. It is a lot, but you're going to have to figure all that stuff out anyway. So you're already figuring it out. You just might be doing a really shitty job figuring it out. And so if you can go from looking at everything like it's this one-off unique snowflake thing that you're trying to cobble together to this like modular Lego-esque building blocks that we can like, you don't have to know everything about all 1,000 pieces of Legos. You just need to know how to use these like core pieces, and you can build just about anything.
Yep.
It's way less daunting like that.
Yeah, it is. And, I think you're right in the sense that there's the different pieces that fit for that particular season that you're in business. And so sometimes when you read a book or something else, it can kind of gloss over some of the details. I mean, that was big in my own story that I was like, I would read a book and then I would like, okay, yeah, this makes sense. But where do I put this information? And then I'd read another book. And it was almost like I was gathering through reading the books, conversations, podcast, conferences I would go to, programs I was in. I was like gathering the puzzle pieces. Do you see what I'm saying? I
Hmm.
was gathering the puzzle pieces, and then I would look at it and think, okay, I feel like I have a lot of, we use the word asset a lot. I have assets here. It's not like I'm starting from, I don't have anything, but I don't know how to put all of this together in a way that it makes sense. It just felt like it was almost like a Frankenstein
Hmm.
business
Like, you know, a
in a
lot of
way.
stuff, you know, more than you used to know, but not sure how this becomes coherent.
I don't know how to put it all together. I don't know if you've ever, I'm a watch guy, so I like watches. If you've ever seen a video where a watchmaker has taken the back of a Rolex off, or I mean, whatever. Let's just take, but let's say it's a mechanical watch for sure, not a quartz watch with a battery, but so it's a mechanical watch. If you've ever seen a watch, it blows your mind about how many different things are actually in the back of a watch. It's unbelievable how many pieces. I mean, I watched this guy. It was really a fascinating video to watch this guy take the back of this 1950 something Rolex GMT watch off, and took the back off, and he restored it. And I mean, this watch is like worth $150,000 because it's so old, but he had done a beautiful job. And I thought, oh my gosh, look how many little tiny pieces are in there. And he did, the video was fascinating. My point is all of that had a purpose. All of that had a purpose. But when you see all of these pieces like taken out and laid out, if you did not know how to put that back, now he's an expert at doing this. But if you did not know how to put that back, that would get overwhelming. But he knows exactly this piece goes here. Then I take this gear, and then it attaches to this gear. Then it attaches to this gear, and all the pieces work together. And then whenever he puts the back of it on, you have this beautiful working Rolex watch or whatever, right? And so I think a lot of times business owners are incredibly driven. They don't need to be told that they need to work hard. Okay, they just don't need that at all. Matter of fact, I think for the vast majority of the people that we work with, the problem is not whether or not we can get them to go. It's the fact that they're burnt out. That was my story. That was my story. I was completely burnt out. Um, it was August the 4th, 2015. I went and saw a cardiologist at 34 years old because I was working my ass off.
Hmm.
Well, that's exactly what I needed in the early days to do, but that's not the thing that was sustainable. It wasn't sustainable, Nick. Like that, you can't keep that up for a long period of time. What's interesting about this is I'm coming off of right now. I feel like even just in the last 24 hours, the last 2 weeks, I have been working so hard on a particular project, but it's been 2 weeks, and I know I'm coming out of it where I'm like, okay, I'm past that. We're leading up to a launch. It was a season.
A
But if
sprint is
that
very
two,
different from running a sprint pace through a marathon, right?
correct. I was running a sprint pace for 5 years.
Yeah.
January of 10 through August of 15, it finally broke. I don't know if it's if you've ever, everybody has seen the movie, uh, Top Gun Maverick.
Hmm.
And and then when he's in the video where he's in that really fast, new, cool plane, and he's going Mach 10, and then he pushes it a little bit further. What happens?
Yeah.
Now, it's a movie. It's ridiculous. He survives. Come on. He didn't survive. You wouldn't survive
Right.
that. You wouldn't survive a plane blowing up going Mach 11 or whatever it was. There's no
Only Tom
chance.
Cruise.
Only Tom Cruise could survive that, right?
Yeah.
But
So
that's a metaphor.
do you mind sharing a little bit more about your story, that those first 5 years? Like, how did it get to that place?
Oh my gosh, I could literally show you. I mean, honest to goodness, it's on my phone. I show this in the web class that I do. I literally share the screenshots of the text messages that I sent to friends on August the 4th because I had I had breakfast scheduled and I had some things that day and I had to reschedule some meetings. And I said, I'm really sorry. I had to go see a cardiologist today because the stress has just been too much. So, but 2 months before that, so in June, there's a foreshadowing to this. We're in Disney, and the kids are 5, almost 5, and 1 at the time. And as I told you before, they're now 14 and 10, but at the time they were 5 and 1. And there's a picture that I took. I'm not super active on social media, but I did take this picture and post it on social media. And it was of 2 computer screens. If you look at the date and look it up, it's on a Monday. And I was running a Monday team meeting from Disney. If that's not enough, the caption says, "Better never stops, even on vacation." 2 months later, I'm seeing a cardiologist. Something's got to change. Something's got to change. I think all of our members have had some story of that. It may not be a cardiologist visit, but it's something.
It's a
It's
conversation with a
something that says,
spouse or a
yeah,
kid or
whatever,
an accident. Yeah.
right? I just hope that for people that for business owners, they don't have to get to that point to where they realize they have to make a change. Now, this is where, okay, well, what did I do? Well, it wasn't like obvious. I didn't walk out of the cardiologist, Nick, and go, epiphany, like God is just giving it to me. I know exactly what I need to do. No. I mean, when you've done something for 5 years, and I want to be clear, it had worked. Okay. It's not like what I was doing was not working. It actually is the fact that it was working. And so I just continued to do more of it. Okay. Well, this is working. It's working. Keep doing. Tom Cruise in the movie Maverick. Push on the gas a little bit more. If I can just get another 10,000 a month. If we can just do this, if we can just qualify for this thing, if we can just make it over this last one more little hill, we'll be okay. That's a fallacy. No, fortunately, I went to Toronto, and I mean, we can get into this however you want to, but ultimately I met an entrepreneur, and it was really that interaction with him that really changed everything. And it was the flight back home from Toronto that really made me say, like, I think I get it now. I think I understand it. I think I understand what the changes are that I need to make. Like, I've really got to get out of being the operator of my business. I've got to step into being the owner of my business. We refer to that as becoming the architect of your business. I saw myself no longer as the doer of the thing, but the designer of it. And so, like, I always saw my role as like push, do. And I was like, wait a minute, I think I'm doing this all wrong. And, I haven't mentioned this, but like all of this really came from my dad. I was modeling my father. He's in farming, agriculture. And so,
I can relate.
You just bust your ass. I mean, that's what it is. And I saw how hard he worked, and I'm so grateful for that. My dad and I have a great relationship now, but that does not come without some downsides as well. I'm modeling exactly what my father did, which was just work all the time, workaholic. And that is one of those addictions that people tend to not look at the same as alcohol, drugs, shopping, whatever it may be. There's so many other things. Well, also you can become addicted to work as well. And we tend to like laud that, And so I'm not saying you're not going to have to work hard for sure, but there has to be some level of guidelines and parameters and a way to approach it and some specific things to do to get yourself out of that.
Going back to the conversation with the entrepreneur you said in Toronto, do you
Yep.
remember what it was that made it click for you? What were the words or the phrases
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
the
I'll
slap
tell
in
you
the
exactly what
face?
it was, for sure. So I'm in strategic coach, a great entrepreneurial coaching program, Dan Sullivan. And so this is now portrayed in the book. So he's written a book with Dr. Benjamin Hardy on this. It's called 10X is Easier Than 2X. So great book. I recommend people go get it. But in late 2015, that was not a book. That was a concept. That was a tool that they used. And it was a one pager. And so we're doing this exercise, and I'm sitting next to a guy I've never met before. And I'll never forget, we briefly introduced ourselves. He was in an adjacent industry, meaning like it wasn't too far different from the industry that I was in, which was in insurance and financial services. And he was a financial advisor. And so, nice to meet you. He had a backpack on. I was like in a sport coat, jeans. I was all dressed up, and he's like got a hat backwards. And so we do this exercise. They teach it to us. And then you always have a little bit of individual thinking time. And then you partner up. And so he and I partnered up. He was on my right. And so he goes first. He goes, all right. So last year we did 40 million. I made 5 million personally. So here's what 400 million and 50 million would look like. I was like, wait, say that again. You did $40 million last year and you made $5 million personally. Now, remember what I said earlier. My business was doing like 600,000 in revenue for the year. I was like, you make as much in a month personally as my business does in a year in revenue. And I was like, what? It was just, I was so mind blown by the whole, just like, that is not what I expected. Okay. And so he goes, all right, you go. I was like, I'm literally not going to go.
I can't help you.
I am so embarrassed. And he was so nice about it. He was so cool. He ended up being an athlete. He played professional baseball for a period of time. He was Canadian. He was super cool. I've actually tried to connect with him because I wanted because to him it was probably just another day. Like he don't remember this moment. But for me, I was like, I don't remember anything we did the rest of the day because I was like, wow. But I did ask him. I was like, dude, what in the world? He said, look, man, it's just systems and processes. Just systems and processes. You got to have a good team. And I said something smart ass back. But remember, this is important. What has just happened to me? Okay. I just have gone to the cardiologist a few months prior. So I'm in a state of frustration. Quite frankly, I'm in a state of considering leaving entrepreneurship. I'm at that point to where I'm actually was looking to go back into pharmaceuticals, a $200,000 base salary, company car, 401k, benefits. Well, that sounded good at the time. I was going to be making more money than I was then. And so I thought, you know what? I think I might just go back. I think I might just quit. I can't tell you how many of the entrepreneurs I work with that have said that exact same thing. They said, you know what? I've gotten to a point I think I'm going to quit. I don't enjoy what I do anymore. I got into this for fun, freedom, and flexibility. I don't love this job. I'm not making any money. I work my ass off. I don't play golf anymore. Blah, 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 blah. There was this dream of being a multi-million-dollar business. It doesn't look anything like that. I think I'm just going to go work for somebody else. I mean, almost every entrepreneur has had some version of that story. But to his credit, he said, look, man, I'll just show you. And so he did. And so at lunch, he was like, look, man, this is how we do this. This is how we do this. This is how we do this. And like, I don't remember anything that was on the page. It wasn't like he sent me the documents. It wasn't that. But it was literally what he said was, I just got the business out of my head. See, he was an individual financial advisor working for a company like a Merrill Lynch. I don't know who it was, but let's just say it was Merrill Lynch. And he was really good. And then he built a team. And then he went on his own. And then he just started to duplicate. He learned, why am I so good? Why am I so good at being a good financial advisor? He didn't just say, you know what, I just have these unique skills. He literally just unpacked his head and said, this is how we get clients. This is how we serve them. This is how we do this. This is how I recruit other financial advisors. And he just had a team of financial advisors. He just kept building. Did he go hire 100 of them at a time? No. He built one. He built another one. He built another one. He built another one, so on and so forth. And at the time, I think he had a team of 100 people or so, a staff of 100 people, 40 million top line, $5 million to him personally. I mean, just like it built over time. It didn't happen in 2 years. And on that flight back home, as I tell people, did I pull up Word? Yes, I did. I really was like, okay, we have nothing documented, nothing. I might need to start there. But I think more so, Nick, the thing that was way more like the change in me happened whenever it was an identity shift. Like I was like, okay, I can't be the operator anymore. I've got to go be the owner. I've got to make the move from operator to owner. We call that transformation internally Rainmaker to architect. Like I saw myself as going and like, all right, I got to go design this thing and then go build it. I'm just running around like a chicken with my head cut off, and I've got to stop doing that.
Isn't it so crazy that that's such an enormous unlock? In your case, it was just the thinking about leverage differently, how to leverage yourself differently, and how pretty quickly you were able to shift and then build this beautiful system that
Yeah.
you have, right?
Yeah.
The operating system. So far from that until you had that shift appear about your identity. But then once, I would say, I don't know how long it took you, but the process of building that, of recognizing the operating system began almost immediately when you had that epiphany. And
Yep.
certainly, like so many entrepreneurs, you're that close, but that far away if you're not putting yourself in a situation where you're going to have the epiphany.
Yeah. I think that it wasn't look, I read E-Myth before that met that guy. Okay. I mean, it's why the name of my podcast is Above the Business, is because it's a nod to the E-Myth, work on it, not in it. I agree. I just think there's a third dimension, which is above. It wasn't that I had not heard that before. The difference was because I was in so much pain. And pain as in, I don't literally mean pain, but I mean frustration. I was pissed off. I was just pissed off, honestly. And I was like, no more, never again. I'm not doing this anymore. It's either going this way or I'm out. Like I'd really gotten to that point. Okay. And so the difference is instead of like just being on the plane and I was like motivated in that moment to start like, what do we actually do? Who do we serve? How do we serve them? How do we sell customers? I kept doing it. Like I just kept on because I just had this. It was almost like I had this place. I've never actually thought about it this way. I think it was because, and I haven't built a $40 million company. And honestly, I don't have the desire to go build a $40 million company like he did. But it was almost like because I saw a picture of what could be one. And I also had this place of like where I was, that I was like, I'm never going back here and I'm going towards this, that it just kept me on the path that this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to figure this shit out. If it's okay for me to say that. Absolutely. I don't cuss much, but like, I'm going to figure this out. And so when I got back, I kept working on it. Well, then what do I do with this? People talk about recruiting. I don't have a recruiting system. Oh my gosh, I got to go build that one. And I literally just kept a list in an Excel spreadsheet of like, I got to go build that. 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 And I didn't have a model. I didn't have a model. I didn't have templates. I didn't know how to organize it. I didn't know where to put it. I didn't know how to document it. I started to even get into stuff like we teach even the basics, like all your documents need to look the same. People are like, well, gosh, I hadn't even thought about that.
Your folder system, that's what got my attention.
Literally. I mean, this actually came up yesterday, and I showed people, I could show you the literal on the slide. I was like, this is the structure. This is the folder structure. This is where these things go. And what that does, it creates organization. It creates structure. But see, people would say that, but I was like, how do you do that? What does that look like? You read Traction as an example, great book, but it doesn't get down into these details that the business owners at that 300,000 and 3 million range need to understand. Look, if you're at 10 million above listening to this and you've got a leadership team, EOS is awesome. I think EOS can take you from 10 million to 100 million. But I'm going to be very real. I read Traction and I was at $600,000 in revenue. I don't have a leadership team. I don't run an L10 meeting. I don't do quarterly leadership retreats. It's comical. Okay. We had a member, Nick, that just joined. He's doing $400,000. And he made a comment whenever he was going through his onboarding with us about his office manager. And I said, Jared, I'm going to be honest with you, man. You don't have an office manager. You are the office manager right now. Go get the thing to 1 million and we're going to talk about it. Stop trying to big time and act like, and I didn't say it this direct to him, but like basically I was like, no, you don't. Stop with that. You don't have an office manager. like you are the office manager right now. This is how we're going to build that to ultimately, whenever you literally then have 6, 17 members at 1 million, okay, now we start talking about actually getting your first level of management. I said, now, if you need an EA to help you to create leverage, let's go get yourself an EA, but let's not try to act like you've got 3 team members and one of them is an office manager. You see what I'm saying? Like, let's just be real about it. And he was like, you know what? I appreciate you being so direct. Yeah, you're kind of right. He goes, I think I just want to act like I'm, like I have this, but I never really thought about it. And nobody's ever really kind of called me on the carpet about this. So I was like, cool. All right, let's go do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, even if with the best of intentions, right? Like they're trying to anticipate things for the future, but you don't want to blur the lines. Like there's anticipation and then there's trying to skip a level, and you
Yeah.
don't get to skip levels.
Yeah. So to that point, it's actually a good point that let the business dictate then what happens. Like grow into things, grow into it, and then go, okay, now we need to do this. So often this happens with salespeople. People are like, okay, all right, I'm going to go hire 2 sales reps. I cannot afford them right now, but I'm just going to go do it
We're going to need
and
them.
then hope that it works. Okay. Well, I'll just tell you, client I'd worked with for 1.5 years was doing great. Construction business. We stopped working together last June, about 6 months ago. He calls me in December and says, Bradley, I don't have anybody else to talk to about this. I'm really in a bad spot. Can we talk? I was like, yeah, man, let's go get coffee tomorrow. So we did. I was like, all right, man, tell me what's going on, buddy. I was like, ask me. I said, tell me about so-and-so. He's like, they're gone. I was like, okay. Tell me about so-and-so. They're gone. Tell me about so-and-so. They're gone. I was like, wait, what has happened in 5 months? He got into $250,000 of debt because he was just like, hired all these people, paid them all this money, had all this stuff. And it was like, the only way that would have worked is if everything would have happened perfectly. Boom, 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 boom. It would have, like literally everything had to go great. So he spent the money on the front side and was like, this has got to work, versus being to a point to where, man, there's so much business that literally I've got to hire some other people to then come in and actually not take this over. And the business then dictates and pulls him forward, versus he was kind of pushing a rope.
Yeah. Yeah. There are some things where it might feel a little bit reactive, but you got to let the demand accrue before you tool up for it.
100%.
Especially if you're going into debt to do it.
Yes. Yes.
So what does it look like with the operating system? So I've gone through some of your materials and the quick start course, and it's funny, the folder system really did get my attention because I built an operating system in my previous company that we did niche business coaching programs and got pretty big. But the folder system like that was one of the pieces that we gave everybody from the beginning, because if you can't keep up with stuff, you're going to be drinking from a fire hose. Mm-hmm. Like this matters. Okay. It is a Google Drive folder system, but it's important because if you don't have this, you're going to be lost in 2 months. Sure. So let's not waste our time here. Do things like this. Yep. And you've gone like beyond what we did as far as some of the detail with the documents. And I love it because it all really does matter. It is hard for somebody who's been in that like startup phase to recognize why it matters, because it wouldn't have mattered to them before that. Yep. But that's part of the evolution that you described. Yep. And I think it really appeals to me, like where your perspective and why it's so important to them. Talk about what does it look like for a new client for you to come in from coming out of that first startup phase, going into this phase and like trying to adopt this new way of being.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to earlier about some of the details that when sometimes you read a book or whatever, it gives you these high level concepts, but then people are like, what do I actually do? What do I name the folder? And you're like, okay, this is what you name the folder. I have a playbook. I have playbooks. Well, you just start calling everything a playbook? Like we actually literally have naming conventions where we say, this is a principle, this is a playbook, this is a system, this is a process. That is what we call our hierarchy. And the reason they're important is for these 2 reasons. One, is because people talk about structure, they talk about routine, they talk about this kind of things that they want, but that nobody ever gives them the detail of what they need. And so it literally helps you to be able to not use words interchangeably. Like in our program, we don't just throw around words and be like, well, it can be this or it could be that. It could be this or it could be that. It's like, no, no, no. This means this. This means this. Like I remember there was a period of time, this was years ago, like everybody, you get to a client and they're calling everything a playbook. You're like, how many playbooks do you have? Like 72? When our model, there's 15. 15. The business runs on 15 playbooks. Okay, well, what's inside of a playbook? Systems. Well, what's inside of a system? Process. Now, I promise you, I did the research on this. You go start Googling this. One person calls it a process. Another person calls it a system. Another person calls it a checklist. Another person calls it a procedure. The more you do the research, the more confused you get. So I finally just said, what is the hierarchy here? Like, how does this actually work? And so then I was like, all right, no, this is what we got to be. And I did all of that to try to then be like, call it this, and put it here. So here's the kind of a quick analogy. And then also why the final thing, a reason why it's important. When you do laundry and you wash your clothes, you put them in the dryer, you take them out of the dryer, put them in a basket. Most people go dump it out on the bed or maybe a laundry room if you have that. And then what do they start to do? They start to fold the clothes. This is important. Where do they do then? Well, they put the socks in the sock drawer. They put the shirts in the t-shirt drawer. They hang up their golf shirts. They put the jeans where the jeans go. They put the kids' clothes in the kids' room, in the kids' drawer. They put things where they go. Why? Why don't we just take them out of the laundry room and just start throwing shit everywhere?
Or just leave them in the laundry room and go in there and get dressed.
I mean, whatever. Why don't we just put the jeans underneath the kitchen sink? Why don't we just put the socks in the playroom? Why don't we just put t-shirts in the garage? What's a ridiculous analogy, but you get the point though. It's because when we go to look for those things, things go where they're supposed to go. Why would your digital assets in the business not be any different? That recruiting system that you have, that's an 8-step recruiting system that says, do this, ask these questions. Do this, ask these questions. Do this, ask these questions. That is valuable. That is an asset to the business. It is no good if nobody knows where to find the thing. Like, where do we actually go? Well, you go to team. Okay, that makes sense. Attract. Yeah, let's go to the Attract A Players Playbook. There's a folder right there that says recruiting system. I'm going to pull up that folder. Click there. There it is. There's all of our assets. Okay, I think that makes sense. You follow what I'm saying? Like, it matters because then people aren't going on a scavenger hunt looking for everything. And so if you really want to scale, these are the things that help you to be able to scale. And if you ever want to exit the company one day, some people do, some people don't, but thinking that way is very valuable. Because if you can go to a potential acquirer of your business and say, Nick, let me show you our assets. I'll literally show you every one of them. So when you buy the company, these are all the assets you're going to get. You want to know how we market? Here it is. You want to know how we sell? Here it is. You want to know how we recruit team members? Here it is. You want to know everything about the business? It's all right here. We give you access to the Google Drive folder or whatever you use, Dropbox, it doesn't matter, Microsoft SharePoint. Here it is. Here's all the assets to the business that you're now buying. That becomes incredibly important in an acquisition.
And everybody here that works here right now knows how to do those things. They've been trained on them. They know, that is our way of being.
That's great. Well, that all started with you. Because then that permeates, and it's actually a good segue to where I was going, is it permeates the culture. We do things by design, not by default. That's what you've done. We do things by design. We don't just randomly do things. There's a purpose and a reason for why we do it. So that is very much reflected in who you are as the leader of that company. That's why you guys have been so incredibly successful, because it permeates down. Because I've gotten this question before. Yeah, I mean, I hear you, but why does it matter that all of our documents look the same? Okay, two reasons. One, it creates uniformity. Every time you pull up a document, it looks the same. Every time you pull up a document, it looks the same. Okay. I have nothing against Arial font. I have nothing against Times New Roman. But the reason why we don't use Arial, you know why?
I do. Yeah.
It's the default in Google Docs. Okay. It's the default font. And so literally we choose anything but Arial. And so, of course, this hasn't happened in years, but I would lose my mind if my team sent me a document in Arial. We literally have it as a maxim. Never send a document in Arial. And the reason is because we do things on purpose. Everything we do is by design. And so the purpose is not whether or not you're going to sell more clients, scale your business, or it's going to become more valuable to an acquirer because you used, Times New Roman instead of Arial. No, it's not that. But what becomes very important is that the team has bought into the culture of we do things a certain way. We don't just randomly do things. We do it a certain way. This is why this matters. Does that make sense?
You don't want to have a culture of it that includes being willy-nilly about things, right? And so it starts with some of the smaller things to help that culture shift in the direction that you want to, but everything matters in some way, shape, or form. And I love being what you said about putting intention to everything. Even the small things like a font indicate that we're towing the line in that area. Like,
It's intentionality. It's
mm-hmm.
intentionality. Customers are never going to see it, um, but that's not the point. What they will see is that you do things a certain way. You do
Mm-hmm.
things a certain way. I mean, now we, even this morning before I hopped on, 10 minutes before I got on this call, I recorded a minute Loom video to my EA. And I said, we are adding a step to when we run our weekly coaching calls on Tuesdays. We added a step that is a kind of a post production thing where we're using some AI tool so that records all of the stuff. And we want to add that summary to a certain place. And so what did I do? I shot a Loom video and I said, hey, I think this is how this needs to go. It took me 45 seconds. Important. I shot the Loom video one time. I transferred it from like how this is how I envision this is how I want this. I gave her a 5-second why. Hey, this is why this is important. Why I think it'd be valuable for our members. She now has it. But here's what's important. It did not go from my head to her head. It's not like something she's got to remember. It now has gotten added to our weekly process. So in the future, I don't have to worry about, did Courtney do that or did Courtney not do that? No, it's added as a checklist. She does this, she uploads it, she sends it to the Google Drive folder, she uploads it to Circle, then she does this, then she takes Firefly's AI, she copies the summary, she adds it underneath this, she does that, she checks the box.
It removes the burden of you having to refigure that out or monitor it. If as long as she's doing her job includes that thing.
This may be controversial. I don't want a people dependent business. I don't want a people dependent business. I want a process dependent business. And then I'm going to overlay that with A players.
I like to look at it as I want to take all of the things that can be routinized and put them into process and compartmentalize that, then lay the A players over that and leaving them enough room to bring their magic to life.
Correct. I mean, in my businesses, there are still so many things that are uniquely human. I just want to, like you said, routinize. I want it to be a process driven, the things that just need to happen on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
And then allow the uniqueness of the people to come out because all of the other things are taken care of. We do this, we do this, we do this, we do this, we do this. That's what we want to do. The other thing is, like, we've produced my podcast now for over 5 years. I mean, the reality is the team really works like a well-oiled machine. I do this, I record this, I send it to them, I do my part, it's done. Well, the problem with that is as we grow, what if we want to hand that process off? What if we want to hand it off? If none of that's documented, then what are you handing off? You're just taking it from one person's head to another person's head. And then from that person's head to another person's head. Well, what happens if that person leaves? I've had that happen before. As a matter of fact, in 2016, after, I was on this like big kick and we were, I started documenting stuff. Sometimes it takes a long time to really learn the lesson. You're going to keep making the mistakes until you learn the lesson that it's trying to teach you. So in 2016, I hired my first EA. Hiring the EA was not the problem. She was full-time. I didn't need a full-time EA at the time. I way overpaid. But I will say this, it was working. Like we had a really good process for something we were doing in the office. It got better. It got better. It got better. It got better. We were documenting things. We were creating assets. I was on this path. 12 months later, I hired her in January. She left in December. I remember her walking out the door and I was like, I cannot believe it. I did it again. I did it again, Nick. I did it again. Sure, I hated losing her. She got a great opportunity. She got an awesome opportunity. But as she walked out the door, I thought, there goes all that intellectual property. I'm starting all over again. And so what's funny is she was helping me document all the other things, but she didn't document what she was doing. And it's not her fault. It's my fault. But I just thought, good gracious, I did it again. I don't have it now. If I go hire somebody, I got to train them up again because I didn't have anything to hand off. I didn't have a document. It was literally like we improve. I didn't have anything else. I hired somebody in and go, hey, so these are the 5 things that she was doing. Here's one of the things she was doing. Here's 3 pages on it. We're going to do this. We're going to walk through every single step. I'm going to make sure I train you on it. Okay, step 1, go up, pull the customer information up. Step 2, do this. Step 3, do this. I didn't document any of that stuff.
It's like putting in the work to build out to use like a sports analogy, to build out a playbook, but then not having any idea how to coach a quarterback on it. And your quarterback just left. So it's like, hey, we've got a pretty awesome offense here. I hope you can figure out how to run it.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So I really like your podcast, the Above the Business podcast. That's where I originally, how I found you. Tell me about your programs. What else are you offering?
Yeah, so our core offer is Blueprint. That's our core program. We help small business owners doing 300,000 to 3 million. We help them transition from being the operator in the day-to-day to becoming the owner of a business. Again, we call that transformation internally, the Rainmaker to Architect journey. But ultimately, we're going to help you really understand what it means to truly step into the role of becoming the CEO of your business, to really step into what it means to become a true business owner. We think there are 2 main things that are 2 main problems that business owners at that level face. Number 1, that they have no systems. We spent a tremendous amount of time talking about lack of systems today and the importance of an operating system. And then number 2, the other problem that they face is they really have no direction. So they have an idea of what it is that they want in the business, but it's not documented. So they don't have, we call that your point B, but also they don't have a point A. They really don't understand where they are currently in business. That gets into a lot of metrics, like knowing your numbers, understanding culture, but really truly understanding where you are today. And ultimately, that helps us to build what we call a roadmap. So we help people understand where they are today, point A, where they want to go, point B, and then build a plan to get there. And those 3 things make up a roadmap. And so those are the 2 things that we really give our business owners. We give them a roadmap and we give them an operating system. So if you've got a map for where you want to go and you've got the system to be able to build it, we think ultimately you can be really successful and ultimately you can scale your business.
Yeah. So what you just described there, like that's where the name, the business owner's journey came from, is knowing that like there is kind of a predictable path. There's a finite set of things that have to occur. There's a set of lessons that are probably going to occur that we can kind of anticipate and prepare for. And you have to have some awareness as to where you're at on the journey and be able to, and a vision of some sort of where you want to be. You have to aspire to be somewhere. Yeah, I love the perspective that you're bringing to it, and the operating system. That's after my heart right there. Any in my audience who is familiar with me at all knows how I feel about this. I think it's fantastic what you're doing. I really like the system. Well, thank you very much for jumping on. This has been fantastic. This is something that any small business owner who is trying to grow, if you're trying to bust through that ceiling wherever you're like, this is the thing that you need to be aware of. This is the thing that doesn't get enough attention. I don't believe that perspective shift. Bradley, thank you so much.
Appreciate you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for listening. If you found the show valuable, you can say thanks and show your support simply by taking a quick second to like, share, and comment on the show. You can also find more information about each of my guests, all of the resources from the show, and myself at nickberry.info/TBOJ.